Hey guys, some gamer dude here. Back when I first saw Chrono advertised online, I didn't know what to think of it. I saw it advertised as a new Naruto Boruto card game, which got me interested. I thought the original game was brilliant from a mechanical standpoint, then quickly noticed that this new game seemed to be a strange magic type game with pictographs instead of text. I dismissed it as nonsensical gimmickry quite quickly. About a month later, I decided to give it a decent look and quite liked what I saw. In some regards, it was a really direct Duel Masters clone. In others, it was fresh and original. What was original about it was, honestly, inspiring. I ended up picking up both the Naruto sets and recently I got to try it. What is it as good as it looked on paper? Let's find out. Chrono Clash is a game engine in the same way that the Universal Fighting System, now Universes, and Weiss Schwarz are, bringing in different properties each outing. The first set being Naruto and Boruto, the second set being Godzilla. Chrono Clash is also not a trading card game, but what Fantasy Flight Games calls a living card game. A set product with no randomized components. Or should I say minimal, as the Chrono Clash sets for Naruto do come with some randomized foil variants of the cards included in the decks. The Naruto sets being two sets of two decks, and the Godzilla set being one big set of four decks. Each deck includes 50 cards, spares to make up playsets, and 6 oversized EX cards. These sets are fairly reasonable at 35 USD each for the Naruto sets and 50 for Godzilla. In my local currency, this is between 60 and 70 for the Naruto sets and 100 and 110 for Godzilla. The system itself, Chrono Clash, is named after its defining mechanic, the Chrono Gauge, wherein instead of paying a resource like mana, you lose time. When your opponent has time, your turn ends. The game starts at 0. Let's say you play the 5-drop Sonate. You give your opponent 5 time. Your turn ends. Now your opponent may play cards, each one reducing their time by the cost of their card, until the cost of their card goes past the 0, giving you time. If they decide to pass, you set your time at 3. This is a really cool system that prevents any dead cards, but also introduces a risk reward to playing cards. Open with a really big card, your opponent may now play a slew of stuff. Play conservatively, and things gradually escalate as per norm with games similar to Magic the Gathering. Chrono Clash is also unique in that the cards do not have any text, instead using pictographs. Each card utilizing a series of icons to communicate what it does. At first it's quite daunting, but becomes second nature fairly quickly, as most things are fairly decent at communicating what they do. A card in a green arrow is an enter effect. A fist in a green arrow is when the card attacks. The cost and the strength modifiers are color coded. Many icons do have a little bit of text. There are very few that you need the manual to learn, and since they are so unique visually, you pick them up fairly quickly. The pictographs became second nature by about our third game. I haven't discussed much of the gameplay and for very good reason. Outside of the chrono gauge, the way the cards read, and a couple of other things, the game is pretty much Duel Masters. This shouldn't be surprising. The game was developed by Duel Masters and Kaijudo lead designer Ryan Miller, but is essentially Duel Masters with a different resource system and some slight changes. Like Duel Masters, you start by placing the top 5 cards of your deck in front of you face down. They represent your life, here called Guardians. Like Duel Masters, your character cards, here called Battlers, have a unified stat, here called Strength, and have Summoning Sickness. Like Duel Masters, the goal of the game is to attack your opponent's Guardian stack enough to destroy all their Guardians, and then attack them once more for game. Like Duel Masters, cards can have abilities triggered when they are destroyed as Guardians that are used at instant speed. Also, like Duel Masters, cards are either character or spell cards, here called Butler and Ability cards. Finally, like Duel Masters and its Breaker series, some higher powered battlers break multiple Guardians. As I said, it's Duel Masters with some slight differences. What are those differences? We already went over the chrono gauge, which changes the pacing fairly significantly and stops the hand drain caused by a 5-card hand fueling both the resource zone and the main board. The game also utilizes a fluid turn structure, allowing you to attack and play cards interchangeably until you give your opponent time. How Guardians work is fairly different to Shields. Shields in Duel Masters go to the hand, and if they have Shield Trigger, are cast for free at instant speed. Shield Trigger as an effect is also fairly uncommon. When a Guardian is attacked, it is revealed. You actually use the strength stat of the Guardian. It fights back. If the strength of the Guardian is as high as or higher than the attacker is destroyed. Guardian abilities, the equivalent of shield triggers, are also very common, being activated before the battle. Regardless of what happens, the Guardian is destroyed. Unlike Duel Masters, where the shields are broken at the same time by a creature with double breaker or higher, battlers that attack additional Guardians break them one by one, allowing the Guardian to stop the attack from breaking additional Guardians via battle or effect. Blocker also doesn't exist in Chrono Clash. Instead, it has an effect called Sentinel, which has its own quirks. Where Blocker redirects attacks to it at the cost of tapping when the opponent attacks, battlers with Sentinel come out tapped and magnetize attacks to them that would be directed at the Guardian stack. However, the magnetic effect of Sentinel only works if the card is tapped and not on a quest, something we'll cover soon enough. This means that the card has to be tapped via an ability or attacking, and when it attacks, it's at the risk of the Guardian killing it. This as a whole keeps the game very dynamic, with more of an emphasis on effects for control rather than the defensive stasis playstyle. When I was talking about what each box contained, I said each deck included 6 EX Battler cards, an oversized extra deck. Effects will place these cards into your hand, and they are summoned by destroying your battlers with a total cost equal to the cost of the EX Battler card. It's somewhat similar to the Tribute Summon from Yu-Gi-Oh!, but the EX cards are generally more worth the Tribute Summon than those from Yu-Gi-Oh! The cards being added to your hand, generally having fast, what Chrono Clash calls swiftness, with strong effects. While the higher end battlers like the 8 drops have very powerful effects, the EX battlers surpass them. While some can have very high strength, higher than anything in the decks, the amount of Guardian abilities in the game does counterbalance it. The problem with the EX battlers is that it is a pain in the ass having them in hand, the cards being double sized. There is a reason for it to differentiate the EX battles from the normal deck cards, but you kinda end up just setting the EX battles aside until you need them. The final unique aspect of Chrono Clash is an alternate victory condition that makes use of the large amount of cards with Guardian abilities. This is called questing. To quest, you tap a battler and put a card from your hand underneath it face down as a Guardian. If your opponent does not attack it during their turn, it becomes a quest reward. When you have 5 quest rewards, you win. The unfortunate thing with questing is that, from my experience, if you start questing, it just causes your opponent to become more hostile to your Guardian stack, resulting in you having to switch gears to combat that. Questing feels like it's a rather pointless endeavor with these sets of cards. I really like Chrono Clash. It's a lot like Force of Will in that it feels familiar, yet has its own identity with what it changes. But unlike Force of Will, it's actually well made with a lot of thought put into it. This is because of Ryan Miller being behind it and him being who he is. The game owes a lot to Duel Masters being dead in the West and the unique nature of the Chrono Gauge, but it is genuinely fun. Even with my grievances over the EX battles being annoying in game to hold and questing being counterintuitive to winning, both of these are negligible complaints. The game is dynamic, has a good amount of strategy and spectacle. It's very much a game I can enjoy. I enjoyed it enough that the day after I got to play it, I went and pre-ordered Godzilla. It feels more like an evolution of Duel Masters than anything else. The really funny thing is, the game actually feels tailor-made for me. A long time ago, I made a video talking about the problems with living card games, saying that they operate more like board games, hence why they don't work for the mass market and have a niche appeal. Chrono Clash operates like a TCG. It's exactly what I personally wanted. A game in a box, paying to get around the pack system of days gone by. I understand that the pack system does appeal to a lot of people, but I for one am more than a little bit over it, and given how normal it is for everyone to just buy the decks as singles, I can't be the only one. Even if you don't like Naruto, I suggest keeping an eye on Chrono Clash till something that appeals comes up. We have Godzilla next, and it's rumored that the third set is Gundam. Names have been thrown around such as One Piece, Dragon Ball, Neon Genesis, Sailor Moon, and My Hero Academia. I really suggest picking it up once something appeals to you. If you like Duel Masters, you'll like this. If you like Magical Force of Will, I reckon you'd like this. It's not something to get really excited about outside of the chrono gauge, but it's definitely worth your time. This has been some Gamer Dude, and thanks for watching.